Disable. There we go. Perfect. All right, everybody. Today is Thursday, February 3rd. This is MS Office Hours. My name is Heather Cox. With me today are my co-hosts.
Hey, everybody. Stephanie Stevens.
Gary Chandler.
And we are very excited. Well, I don't know where Dewayne just went, but we are very excited. There, he's coming back to us. We are very excited to have Dewayne and Joe from the University of Florida. We'll let them do their full intro, but they're going to talk to us about SharePoint Spaces. This is an undiscovered world, I think, that folks are really just have not spent the time diving into. And so they are going to do just that for us. So we'll turn it over to you guys.
Thank you. I wanted to turn my video off since I forgot to turn it off last week, and that made me feel really bad, so I'm sorry. But I turned it back on because it's our turn to talk this week, and we're going to talk about SharePoint Spaces. Again, my name is Dewayne from the University of Florida. I am a sysadmin for the school, the land grant side of the University of Florida, the Institute of Food and Agricultural Sciences. And that's Joe.
Same team. So we're hopefully going to show you some cool stuff here today. Can we get presenter roles, please, real quick?
Wouldn't that have been helpful? Let's see who can race to do it first. Heather's probably already filling up her LaCroix.
I was busy trying to I'm like, my mic wouldn't come off. Yes. I should have done that before in the background.
All right, Dewayne, I got you, and Joe, I got you.
Stephanie for the win. Thank you, Steph.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you.
So I think what we plan to do today is we're just going to dive in and show you a couple of scenarios of SharePoint Spaces. It's probably easier to see it. If you've never seen it, it's going to be easier to get an understanding of what we're talking about. And then we'll dive in. How do you make this happen? So we're going to cover a couple of scenarios that we have seen, a couple of ways you might be able to use this tool. So the first scenario we're going to cover is, we'll call this a lab orientation. You could consider this perhaps.
You gotta click the lab. Sorry, it's just black.
Got it now?
Yeah, perfect.
Okay. Some type of laboratory, a research lab, you could use this scenario for. We could use this for. Perhaps you've got like a hybrid environment classroom or a conference room that's got equipment in it. And you've got a way to kind of orient people when before they go into those rooms, how to understand what's there, how it might operate, what to expect when they enter those rooms and take advantage of what's in there. So this is our kitchen lab orientation. So this is kind of our research lab. Thoughts on what you might be able to do here. This is a 360-degree environment. We have taken a 360-degree photograph and labeled some items in here. So you could think about this as, where to find different types of research equipment, where to find test tubes, things like that you might label in this room and describe what they are. So clearly we've got a filtration system, we've got a supply, water supply, a lab tech desk, a refrigeration system. We've got a water heating system. These are just, again, these are labels. These are text labels you can drop into this environment. And again, we're going to show you some concepts, and then Dewayne's going to walk you through how you might build this out. But you can bring in different objects into this 3D space. So this is a PDF. So maybe you've got a standard operating procedure on some equipment that you want to talk about. Bring that in, we can view it, we can open it up larger if we need to, scroll through this PDF, take advantage of it, download it, that kind of stuff. So it's one place to put that information in front of people who are walking into this lab. You might have a new grad student, a new researcher, that you might want to onboard. And this is kind of a great way to do it. You can also bring in things like video. So maybe you've got a training video on how to use that microscope or something like that. So you can bring in a video, play it, watch it. They can do whatever they kind of want while they're watching that video. Let me bring in audio for the next one here. Where is that at? There we go. Again, sorry, we can play that video.
Bantam technology is
up
made
in where it's
possible by
located,
combining three
or we
different
can
cooking methods.
right-click and expand
halogen
that
light,
to be nice and large.
microwave energy.
So that's our first kind of basic, get your first view into this. If this is the first time you've seen this, how this works and operates. Our next scenario is a little more detailed and a few more options that are available to you in a SharePoint space. This one is concept around a virtual benefits fair, something at your school, your institution. Benefits fairs might be like this. Maybe it's get to meet some vendors, a way to do this virtually. We've got banners created. You can bring in 3D objects from a set of, they've kind of pre-created a whole bunch of objects that you can bring in. Here's some plants. We've got little benches you can sit on. You can bring in 3D tables. We have brought in some cutout people. We'll kind of talk about very briefly how you do that. So this is some information about dental. So we can zoom in, look at dental. I can, perhaps the vendor has told us a little bit about it. We could listen to the audio there. All of our vendors, we got health and we've got investments. Again, we can click on an object. They maybe have provided some audio.
You got to unmute it in the top left there. That's a new feature that they snuck
Our
into SharePoint
business
Spaces.
is you and your financial well-being.
Thank
All
you.
the twists, turns, ups and downs. A winged up
She sounds
trader's
like a
financial
robot.
advisor can pull it all together with sophisticated.
That's how we made the audio, is by robotics. You can bring in, again, some video. So there's a 3D object for a little TV monitor. It could play that right on the monitor.
The smartest people
Or you can zoom it in
at
and watch
every
it live.
level.
Easy to click in, click out, and access these objects. One trick that we like to show off here is taking advantage of one of our favorite tools, PowerPoint. And some of these objects in here are created and generated from PowerPoint. Quick little tip in PowerPoint is taking advantage of what are called cutout people. So we've got a custom shaped, custom width and height for these banners that we created in PowerPoint. And you can have what are cutout people. You can insert from the stock images, a large selection of interesting people doing interesting gestures and incorporate those. So pretty fun to kick up not only your PowerPoint, but we're using that inside of that SharePoint space by you can just basically right click and save those pictures. You don't want to export those into like a web page public. You want to keep those inside the Microsoft space. Just kind of watch for that. That's our kind of overview of what this looks like and what you can do with it. We'll have another demo at the end, but we're going to show you now what it looks like to get started in this.
All right, hopefully you can see my browser here. So this is actually completely in SharePoint. Every single time you build a team, you have a SharePoint site sitting behind it. So that means every single one of you likely has access to SharePoint Spaces already and maybe just didn't know that it was there. When you go into SharePoint, one of the things that we've noticed is a little bit inconsistent kind of rolling out is that the SharePoint feature has to be turned on for your site. You can do this as a team owner because team owners have site collection admin. So if you click the cog, go to site information, go to view all site settings, and then underneath site actions, you have manage site features. And eventually you can scroll down here and you will see spaces and you'll need to activate it. Now, in some cases, we've seen it being active by default. And I believe that's the direction that this is supposed to be going, is that it will be active by default. But I haven't seen that happen yet. So once it's active, you go to SharePoint Pages and you create a new page and you'll have a brand new option there called a space. So the spaces, it's 3D-ish is what I'm going to call it. It's 3D in the sense that you are more or less in like a 3D bubble. You have one perspective. You're going to be stuck in the center of the bubble. You cannot move around quite a bit, you know, but you can interact with objects that are within your digital reach. So the first thing that you can do is go in here into space design. This is where you can name your space. So this is going to be a demo space. You can select the type of structure of your demo space. There's different kinds of, like, I don't know, let me zoom out here a little bit or zoom up a little bit. Different kinds of weird, like 3D whatevers around you. I'll be honest with you, the only one that we ever use is called the terrace, which is a disc on the ground. That disc kind of gives you your limit of how far out you can place 3D things inside of your environment. You can also select some different illustrations and imagery. So here we're in a nice meadow that looks pretty, right? And you can add some audio, like you could add some ambient sound, I guess, like nature. It's very calming and soothing, right? So a lot of times what we do in Joe's case, his lab, if you hadn't realized, was his kitchen. So he took a 360-degree photo and imported it into, just uploaded it into SharePoint, and then you can actually just browse for a custom 360 file, and you can pick it. I think we just have this one, I guess, is the only one we have in this particular site. And when you import your custom 360 photo, you now have the option to select like the height. So I'm going to move my disk down to try to make it closer to the ground. You can also set the orientation, the angle that you're going to start at. So again, remember, this is 360 degrees. You're dealing with a big old circle. Once you get your venue kind of set the way you want, you can start importing and adding objects. So this is where it gets kind of fun. You can add a 3D object, and you have this little like drag and drop thing. So I'm going to drop it, and you can kind of see a good example there of that limit I was talking about earlier. I'm going to drop it right there. And what am I going to find? I'm going to search Microsoft's free 3D catalog. I like dinosaurs, so we're going to pick this guy. He looks terrifying. Insert. So now I have a little 3D dinosaur. So let me zoom in here, and we're gonna click on him. Now I have some controls at the bottom where I can manipulate some features about this dinosaur. So I can bring him in closer, and I'll just type in like 5. Bring him in closer. We can make him bigger, I guess. Oh, that might have been too big. Yeah, let's try one, or that's moving him up tall. And you can move him around. Now, let me give you a better, more realistic example, like what we just got from Joe a minute ago. And that was a table. So I'm just going to use the search function and type in table. And I will pick this nice looking office table, and I'll drop it right there. And maybe we're going to have a bunch of dinosaurs on this table. So this table is 6.89. So I'm going to round that off at 6. And this dinosaur is 5. So his perspective is closer to me. So I'm actually going to put him back at 6. And then my table along the bottom here is at 25 degrees. So I'm going to put my dinosaur at 25 degrees. And now you more or less kind of have the dinosaur looking like he's, running on the table. right? So you can use this 3D environment in a sense to position things and dealing with depth and angles and stuff like that to make things kind of work together for you. And one of the examples we're going to show you involves lots of tables, like the benefits fair that Joe was just talking about. One thing that will make your life a whole lot easier is once you get an object inside the space, you can just click the copy icon and then you can move it to another position. So maybe we'll go, you know what, we're just going to go to 0. And then I'm going to copy it again. And I'll send this one to 45. Then I'll copy it again. And then I'll send this one to, 90. Oops, that's 80, 90. And so I can start moving these around instead of dragging them and dropping them. This makes it a lot easier, a lot more consistent, because take your 360, divide it by, I don't know, 20 degrees or something like that. And that gives you your points all around your circle of where you want to drop your tables. I have an example. Joe, are we ready for the last example? Or because you showed some MP3s, right? So maybe I should show how to do that. When you select an object like this dinosaur, if you click the pencil on it, you'll have a thing come up here on the side where you can kind of dictate some of the features that this object has. One of the things is the triggers. So triggers are what you get when you click on the object. So the default trigger is to inspect. Inspect means the user will be able to more or less like pick it up and bring it closer to them and look at it and spin it around. Or if it's an image, they'll be able to like pan around and look at it. You can also define secondary actions. So if you remember in Joe's example, he had a manual that was a PDF file. When you click it, you can see the PDF file. But if you click to the hyperlink would actually jump you out into your web browser so that you could look at the PDF file in a more natural state, I guess, not stuck inside of this 3D environment. So the way that you do that is you'd go down here and you have some actions that you can choose from. You can actually link to a whole nother space. So that's like, I see some comments in there about metaverse. It's kind of funny because you could actually create multiple rooms and then put like a little magic crystal ball in the middle of it and then make that thing teleport you to another room. So you can start making a, relationship between spaces, wormhole your way around through different spaces, which is pretty cool. You saw Joe did audio, so you can associate audio with an object that's in the room. So if you have a description of it, the example of orientation, I think is really good. I saw somebody say John Moore in the chat. I don't know if Joe said John Moore. I don't know. Somebody said John Moore, but he had a really great presentation on, they do custom 360 photos of their conference rooms, and they make orientations like a QR code that's on the table. You scan the QR code, it takes you to a SharePoint space that tells you all about it. And you can pivot and move and click on a piece of equipment. It describes that piece of equipment to you, tells you how to use it, how to change the inputs, how to, touchscreen works, all those different things. So we see lots of use cases for that, especially in engaged classrooms, smart classrooms, HyFlex classrooms, all that kind of stuff that's got lots of tech in it. If you have a standard deployment, you could say, here's how you use a huddle room. Here's how you use a large conference room and distribute that and have a really cool interactive, immersive instruction for that. So I'm seeing comments in the chat too about playing around with this. Definitely play around with this. There's so many, like this catalog, it's crazy. There's so many things in here. So we're going to drop this down. I saw somebody say dancing polar bear. Is that in there somewhere? Where is that? I don't know. Charging rhinoceros, floating astronaut, but there's all kinds of, those are fun, but there's all kinds of like functional, that's weird. How'd that get in there? There's all kinds of functional things that you can have inside of it. Like I said, like tables and chairs, television. So we had one that Joe used was you could have a laptop. So you could drop a laptop. That doesn't look like a Surface though. And you could put that laptop on top of a table. I'm holding control right now and scrolling my mouse wheel up and down to kind of change my perspective so I can see better. Maybe I import a video, and this is where you play that game like I did with the dinosaur over here. You could take the video and you could move it back and tilt it a little bit and make it align with that laptop screen. So when the end user comes in, looks like it's a video playing on a TV. So that would be pretty cool for an engaged classroom, is have the actual smart board, have the video that tells you how to use the smart board on it. You know, that'd be kind of a neat way of executing that. The last thing that we're going to show you is an actual real world example. So Joe, did I forget anything? Could I back out of this?
Maybe, I guess we can talk about images versus PDFs, you know.
Yeah, so you'll see that in this example I'm about to show you. So I'm going to kill this screen share, and I'm going to show you, like, we've shown you some conceptual stuff, right? We've shown you, these are things that would be cool, right? Well, now I'm going to show you things that we've actually done. So I'm going to do something super crazy and share my actual Teams environment from UF. So this is a team for a national conference that we held inside of Microsoft Teams. This was 1,200 people or so had come into this team from all across the country, and we held a national conference completely 100% inside of Teams. And those of you in higher education probably are very familiar with poster sessions. So the Ag Extension professionals in this association had submitted posters. Those posters were judged, and then they were supposed to go on display. Well, normally in real world, you would have a venue, you'd have a big room, you would have posters all over the place. You'd have authors standing next to their poster, accepting questions and talking about their content. So we had to try to figure out how to do that virtual because COVID. So this is what we came up with. So we created a channel called Poster Information. Inside of this channel, we have a tab at the top. In this case, there were hundreds of posters submitted. So we made a space for the finalists and the winners. And because it's inside of Teams, I can bring in a tab. Let me turn off the audio there for you. I could bring in a tab. And they don't ever have to leave Teams. So because this is a SharePoint page, it renders and loads directly inside of Teams and doesn't pop them out into an extra web browser. When we house a conference inside of Teams, our primary objective is to make sure that 100% of our conference content is inside that team and the user never has to leave it. We don't ever want to have a disjointed experience or a web page full of links or something like that. We want all of it to happen inside of this virtual venue. So as we scroll around, these are all posters that were submitted. Let me go ahead and turn the audio. Is the audio? Yeah, it's still on. Sorry. So here's an example of some beekeeping series presented to us by, I think, UGA. So any Bulldogs on here? And
Georgia is historically in the top 5 for a number of honeybee colonies. With honeybees facing a myriad of pest and disease challenges, Georgia is a prime location for educational programming related to honeybee physiology, health, and management.
So this is a really, really, really cool way to execute a fair or to execute a poster session and still have an interactive world where people can, you know, look around and stuff, still have the author describe their content in their own words. And also because we're using Teams here, we can provide them a way to asynchronously post questions for those authors, either be it through various channels. In some cases, we've had, I'll show another one that I'm working on right now, too many teams. So in this case, we've got 100 posters for an upcoming conference. And we provide a pretty extensive, show the demo actually, we provide a pretty extensive SharePoint list that links to various bits and pieces inside of this conference venue. So if they want to go see this poster, they click this hyperlink and it takes them straight to a tab inside of that room's dedicated, you know, that poster author's dedicated room. They could load the poster. They can also post messages and leave it for the author for that asynchronous part. But I'm getting off Spaces. Sorry, let's go back to Spaces. This is a really great, I mean, it's just something that people haven't seen much of, especially our end users. This is really cool to them to have that environment that they get to look around and feel, I won't say normal, but normal-ish, more normal than usual. And it's so much better than just saying, here's a folder with 100 posters in it, you know, or somebody having to design a pretty intensive web page and do those types of things. It's all built right into SharePoint. It's all built right into stuff that you already own, already have access to, like right now. So go build a space, play around with it, come up with some super cool ideas. I see student tech fair. Yeah, that would be super cool. I'd love to see, like a science fair or something like that. In higher ed, I'd have to argue it's probably a little easier because most of our grad students and stuff that are making these posters, it starts out digital and then they send it off to a printer. You could take a photo of it and bring it in. You could do all kinds of stuff, but some of the tips and tricks that we're going to give for you, let me pull up a slide, is wordy slide. I'm sorry. We'll make sure everybody has access to it momentarily. But make sure you get Spaces turned on, doing it through site features. You can use it for poster sessions, research labs, onboarding, conferences, all kinds of stuff. Some tricks that we've learned. Large format PDFs and Spaces suck. Like, it's bad. It doesn't let you pan around and move around. So we actually could programmatically convert all of the PDFs that were provided to PNG. We use a free utility, open source utility called XPDF to do that. There's some PowerShell code right there that you could just feed it a directory full of PDFs and it spits out a whole bunch of PNGs from it. So that makes it a lot easier. The PNG inside of Spaces gives you that capability to pan and zoom in and out and move around this large format document. MP3s as secondary options gives you lots of context to whatever it is that the user is inspecting and playing with. Copying objects is going to save you a lot of time. And then taking the copying one step further, if you're building multiple spaces, like in the event that we're doing soon, we'll have like 10 poster spaces. I'm going to build one page and then get it set the way I want, and then I'm going to copy it. Copying it within the same site collection is, of course. And then, Joe, you've got a camera that's fairly inexpensive, 150, 200 bucks, something like that.
This is 100, 150, little Kodak. It was least expensive I could find. We had a great time with this. We went across campus and took, this is our first conference back in 2020, early COVID days that got shut down. And we took, famous places across campus and brought those into the Spaces. To kind of like, people hadn't been to campus for 4 or 5 months. And I think that was a pretty big hit, taking some of our famous architecture and things like that.
That's a great thing that we've done. It makes those 3D spaces a little bit more familiar to the end user, especially when we're providing them iconic photos from all over our campus of places that they already know about, and it's fun. And we got to hide ourselves in all of them, which was pretty funny. So we're actually in all of them and they just have to look for us. So we're creeping in there somewhere. And then down at the bottom, there's a few comments about our backgrounds. If you want our backgrounds, click that link on the slide and have our backgrounds or connect with us on LinkedIn.
Okay.
That was it. Sorry.
No,
Look,
that
look
is
at all the
awesome.
applause and the mind blows, and this is awesome. I think that based on everyone's reactions and feedback, I know we're going to have a lot of people building spaces and not doing their work in the next few days, myself included. This was awesome, guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Yes.
no problem.
And they do have their shift show. Check them out on LinkedIn. They share some really amazing tips. They have some Microsoft stuff on there, so definitely go on, check them out. But this is fantastic. And yes, if we can get just this slide and be able to share it with everybody, and we'll share that along with the recording. But we thank you so much for being here today. Look forward to another trip to Chicago and a boat ride.
Heather,
One of these days.
I need you to stop the recording so that I can share my surprise with Andy Moon. And with
Hang on.
the two of them are going to get the most joy out of this. So